was just the most sort of
masturbatory kind of
masturbatory exercise. I found it offensive. Welcome to a very special Oscar post-game edition of News Beast. Terrible or the worst Oscars in history? I have Allison, Yarrow, and Ramin. Setoodeh. What do you guys think?
I am hungover still from that telecast. It was the worst thing I ever saw in my
Why
entire
was
life.
it so
you were
bad?
drinking so much?
It was the worst thing ever in my entire. I can't even answer that question because the list is so long. And let's start with something, Rebecca, that you're an expert on: Billy Crystal's face and plastic surgery. What happened? Seriously.
It's bigger. The face is bigger.
It's bigger. Yeah, that to me, that's the least of the Oscar telecast problems.
But it's it's his face and it's his performance and he's the host and he's the face of the Oscars. And if the Oscars can't move, I thought it was a metaphor for the entire night. Because if he couldn't emote, there was nothing to watch and to react to. Well, the funny thing is, it's
actually kind of funny because the Billy Crystal's face, like the Oscars, seems to be frozen weirdly in an unfortunate time.
Exactly.
Nostalgia.
To me, everything about that ceremony seemed like it was from the mid-'80s, except for the fact that maybe bigger celebrities and more exciting movies
And a little bit more
won.
diversity. I mean, a little bit
That's
more
true.
race diversity, gender diversity.
We did have Billy Crystal in
diversity.
blackface in the beginning of the
Yeah, that was one
ceremony,
of the low
so
points
that was
in the
nice.
history of television, as was the entire telecast.
Allison, what did you think? Who were you pulling for? Were you as
pulling.
excited about the artist as
Did you
everybody
watch
else?
the whole thing?
I didn't watch the whole
See,
thing.
you're so bored, you
unfortunately.
stopped.
I
When did you
but
tune out?
Basically, for me, it was about nostalgia for sure, which we covered, but also just sort of an out-of-touch vibe with younger audience, right? It wasn't even live streamed. Most of the people who, you would want that demographic, they had that great shot of Justin Bieber in there. Oh, we're pandering to like a younger demographic. Here's Justin Bieber. Like, why don't you look at him for
Billy
a few
Crystal
seconds?
must have made
you couldn't even
10
watch it online.
jokes last night about how there were only old people
didn't
watching.
make
It was
any
only
jokes.
about old people.
What
You're
is-
really hung up on Billy Crystal. Did you love the rest of the
So
ceremony?
no, okay,
What
so
else
the rest
did you
of it
hate,
was
Ramin?
a disaster too.
Okay.
I have no
Give us a
idea
list.
why Hugo won so many awards. It's not a good movie. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
There's no reason to see it.
And a bigger question to me is, it won about 2 hours worth of awards that nobody cares
There's
about.
no reason
Why are they
to
still
present 24
televising
awards.
these things?
There's
sound
no
editing,
reason.
sound mixing. I don't care.
In this
The
age where we
winners
have
care. The winners of those
But who
categories.
cares?
Of course, well, you can
30
still win
million
an
people.
Oscar, but you don't have to televise it. Also, speaking of sound editing, am I the only one who
Yes.
was going crazy during that? It
No,
seemed like they
Kate
were sending
Arthur
us subliminal messages.
from our West Coast bureau was tweeting about how
Beep.
she couldn't.
Maybe we could do that to all of Newsbeast today. We can run like an old
Bleep, bloop, bleep,
Casio
bloop, bleep, bloop, like that.
piano line underneath it.
Meanwhile, they didn't even do the thing that people wanted to see, which was the Muppets performing their Oscar-winning song.
Yeah, they had Miss Piggy and Kermit up
But
in
it was
the...
that was stupid.
And the
entire thing
composer
was
of the
stupid.
song even admitted it was no Rainbow Connection. He said, this is a great song, but it's no Rainbow
And
Connection.
Jean Dujardin beating
George
George
Clooney.
Clooney
It is an
and
abomination.
Brad Pitt.
I can't even discuss
I mean, if Brad
that.
Pitt had won, that would have been interesting, but it didn't happen. If Viola Davis had won, that would have been interesting, but that didn't happen. Anything that possibly could have been interesting did not
But
happen.
they could have done something that was interesting that had nothing to do with who won what. They could have
Well,
made
that's
it a more
'cause
interesting
Brian
telecast.
Grazer produced the Oscars for the senior citizens
this is
home.
all on Brian Grazer's
Across
head, I think.
America.
My favorite moment, I think, was the Angie Leg bomb. Did you guys enjoy that when Angelina got up on
That was
stage
a
with
good
her
moment,
velvet
in a
dress and
really
just
bad way.
and stuck out her leg?
There was a whole
It was great.
hashtag dedicated to how thin her arms looked.
And a Twitter feed about
But
the
do you
leg.
think they were told, because Cameron Diaz and J-Lo also did that weird back front pose, do you think they were
Yeah.
coached to
More
to do
ass on the
something
Oscars
ridiculous and
to
sexist
counteract
and
Billy
horrible to
Crystal?
counteract all the other horribleness of the show?
Here's my big feeling about the Oscars. I thought that they did the entire ceremony start to finish as if there were no home audience. It was the most
Exactly.
obsessive, narcissistic,
But that's nothing
navel-gazing.
new. I feel like that's
No, it
everything.
used to be.
But
No, that's
especially
not
this
true. It
year
used to be more.
especially this year because the two movies that were honored, Hugo and The Artist, were basically Hollywood peons to themselves. I mean, it was just the most sort of
Masturbatory, kind of
masturbatory exercise. I found it offensive.
I'm trying not to do my next Billy Crystal joke about masturbatory exercises. But you're right, it was bad. And it's such a bummer for people that love movies and watch movies.
It was such a
But
bad
what about the
movies.
parade of sort of the new comedy, era with Kristen Wiig and sort of the Will Ferrell, Jonah Hill thing.
You got all these glimpses of what the Oscars could have been in an ideal world, because there are all these great, hilarious, young, talented people out there. Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis, the cast of Bridesmaids, Chris Rock even, who's been around for a while but was hilarious last night. It was just, there were these horrible teases where they dangled somebody who was funny and talented and engaging and then ripped them off stage and put Billy Crystal back out there.
I think Anne Hathaway and James Franco were better last year.
I totally agree with you.
I disagree.
Which is
with
unimaginable, but at least Anne Franco, at least
she should have been there.
What's-her-face had a million different ridiculous dresses that we could
and it
look
was
at.
so bad that it was actually entertaining, and the last night was just so bad that it was just bad.
All right,
But I think if we asked a 60-plus audience, they would disagree.
No,
with
they
us.
would have fallen asleep like you did.
60-plus of white men.
All right, let's wrap
I was
this up.
out.
We've dumped on the Oscars enough. Final word, Allison.
Nostalgia.
Horrible.
Disaster. That's all from us in Newsbeat. Thanks for coming by. We'll see you tomorrow. It was atrocious. I was like, the whole time I was angry at myself for sitting there.